Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the time for an invitation for a citizen to schedule time on the commission agenda for an item not listed. And the record should show we don't have any citizens in the audience today to do that. Next, we have approval of the agenda.
I would like to add an executive session on at the very end, so maybe as an item 11A after commission reports and discussion. It would be for, in accordance with SDCL 125.2.1 for personnel discussion.
Okay, so we'll amend to add that to the agenda. Any other changes to the agenda? Would we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. On our consent agenda today, we have approval of minutes, approval of travel and education requests, approval of personnel action notices, and approval of the human services report. Would we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Does anyone want to remove anything from the consent agenda or add anything to it? We'll do a roll call vote on the consent agenda.
Jensen?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Consent agenda is passed. Next, we'll move on to routine business and approval of claims.
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions regarding the claims? Comments from staff on claims? We'll have a roll call vote.
Miller?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Claims are approved. Chris, would you like to start us with department head reports? Mike? Bob?
Good morning. Last Tuesday, after the commission meeting, we did have our ISO building code effectiveness meeting, and that's a group that comes in and evaluates our building code standards and helps us on our insurance rating. We think it went pretty good. We got a good program. We had the first one a few years ago, and the goal, of course, is not to lower that rating any, because then that would raise the insurance rate. So I'm confident that we're going to maintain, if not increase, our effectiveness on that. One shortcoming that we noticed was some specific training on the building code and building inspection type thing. And the state does offer some training, so we may start sending some of our people to it. It's international building code training and things like that. And the municipal league out of Pier runs some training in state. So we're going to have to take a serious look at that and possibly sending our people out. But they like the way our in-code system works with our building permits and everything. We've got the good database, and we can track and we keep our historical records and all that. So there was a lot more pluses than minuses, in my opinion. And we'll get a written report on that later. And then, of course, once that comes in, it comes into the county commission in my office. The same day, we also had a meeting from the National Weather Service. They came up, and everyone up here, except maybe the state's attorneys, on my severe weather list where you get my reports especially during the winter time. They came up and we had a meeting and broke down on what they've been sending in the past and what we are looking for in the future. And that was a pretty good meeting. Sometimes they send me information from the National Weather Service that they say don't send out. So I can't send the actual message that they give me out to you guys. So I have to sit there and retype it and all that. So they're looking at streamlining that. So when they send me something, if it looks good, I can just forward it on to you guys. And so we think that's going to work good. We did have a joint jurisdiction meeting on the Wednesday after that, and 2024 we'll probably have our joint jurisdiction ordinance done. No, seriously, they're looking at bringing a draft in November, I believe it is, but we'll see. That would just be the initial draft. I wouldn't hold my breath for the end of the year just yet. We really, just like the mining subcommittee that I'm on, we're not spinning our wheels. We're making progress, but until the whole committee sees it, you don't know what's going on. So we're moving forward, if nothing else. We had our pre-disaster mitigation kickoff meeting at noon on that Wednesday. We had a pretty good attendance of people. We appreciate the pizza that was allowed to be eaten. And on that one, we're going to tie that one into the meeting today at 10 o'clock when they come in for the Madera Township. Because if any of the townships have got projects that could possibly be assisted by mitigation funds, now's the time to get them in this pre-disaster mitigation plan that First District's helping us draft. So I'm going to have to work. Luke Mueller's not there right now up at the First District. He's on vacation, I think the municipal league's actually meeting out in Pierre. But what I want to do is sit down with him and see if they can contact the townships if they haven't already, and see what kind of projects the townships have to put into the PDM. Because there's no guarantee we'll ever get pre-disaster mitigation money, but if there is a disaster in the county, then anything in that book would be eligible to receive mitigation funds. It don't have to be that specific area. So I think that would be worthwhile adding to it. Yesterday, I attended a meeting with the citizens from Madera Township with Commissioner Pierce. I got a planning meeting tonight. Thursday, we got a meeting on making this building into a severe weather shelter. We're working on a state and local agreement. At the next claim cycle, you will see a bill for $5,000. It's my planning office's co-payment or co-share or whatever you call it for the insurance we had a lawsuit on one of our projects up near Lake Hendricks, and that has been settled. The court case has been settled, and we have to pay so much out. So that'll put that budget line will definitely go into the red, and I've contacted the finance officer and county commission director to let them know that we're going to have problems in that professional services line for that year. And last but not least, there's a NACO meeting in December, board of directors meeting. I do belong to a planning association that will assist me in paying for that, and I just wanted to check with you guys to see if you mind if I put a travel request in to attend that, or do you want me to take annual vacation to attend that meeting?
What's the commission's thoughts?
I think he could put in a travel request.
Majority of it will be, of course, paid for by the planning. There might be some county thing on a travel request, but I conserve my money as much as I possibly can, of course.
Bob, where is it and for how long?
San Diego, and it's for 3 days, but 1 day's to travel in. You have 2 days of meetings, and then hopefully you can get out that last day to start flying back.
I'm in agreement with Commissioner Miller that he should put in a travel request, but is that fine? Okay.
Very good. Any other questions or any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen?
I have 3 things. I'll be quick and easy. Good morning. Good morning. Just this week, a couple of things that's going on, just so in case anyone gets a call. The SDSU ROTC cadets are going to be using the grounds again for their drills. This is the second time that they've come out. They aren't using the range, but they do enjoy coming out using the strip of ground in between the building and the shelter belt there. Basically, as I was told by Officer Mondo, they really do like putting their face in the dirt in our strip. So they come out, they do bring unloaded replica weapons, and they do all of their drills on the side of our building there. So that will be on Wednesday the 3rd. On the 2nd, oh God, that's today, the SDSU facilities class is coming out for their class time today, and I will be giving a tour of their facility as well as talking about kind of how we do things operations management wise. Their instructor and I have been talking quite a bit over the last month and a half about how we can provide their class with some information and hopefully making this an actual day in class on a regular basis for them. A couple other things, just so you guys know what's going on for the next week. The Brookings youth football team will be in the classroom on Saturday. We do have the archery tag, free tag, or open tag Thursdays, which start this week. We also have our weekly youth class that is on Wednesdays. We started out with 8, we are now at 14, so that word spread, and so of course we've gained membership from that as well. You guys asked me about membership numbers individually, and this actually takes into account, let's say a family then has 3 children underneath it or 4 children underneath it. Those are included in this number. It's 267 individuals that are now there. And so what I will do is I will break that out, and so one family will then count for 1 membership, and I will have that for you at the next meeting. But it's actually 267 individuals that are now members of the facility. So we've come a long way in just the last 90 days. Also to note, we do now have a computer system that's specifically usable in the classroom for individuals. So if an individual rents out the classroom, there's a complete AVI system there for them. So they don't need to bring in their equipment and then hope our system is compatible with them. They just need to bring in their USB or a DVD of whatever they're trying to do for their presentation, and then everything is just hooked right up there. So that was just a small expense working with Sean there, and now everything is compatible. So definitely a help since we have had some challenges. Any questions?
Just, is there anything special going on with programming with Game Fish and Parks?
Right now, Game Fish and Parks is concentrating on opening duck season and then opening pheasant coming up on October 20th. So we are looking at doing a Harvest SD class coming up here the last week of October, and then maybe the first week of November. And that is for novice hunters to actually go out, learn how to scout, and then how to follow blood trails, and then actually how to harvest an animal ethically, and then actually how to cook within a non-gamey type environment. So we are looking at holding that class at the facility, and I am a certified facilitator for that class through Game Fish and Parks.
Great.
Anything else from anyone? All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki?
Good morning.
Morning.
Just letting you know, we've had 411 absentees. It's been really busy downstairs. This week, they are going to nursing homes, so hopefully we can get those all out of the way this week. One of them we haven't heard back from, but everything else is scheduled for this week. I received notice yesterday that our growth with utilities report that I sent to the state was approved, so we can just keep moving forward with all of the levy process and everything. October 1st, all the cities and schools levies were supposed to be into our office. We're still missing a couple, but that's pretty normal, so we'll keep moving forward with that and just gearing up for the tax month. So other than that, any questions?
Who goes to the nursing homes for the
Who
vote?
goes?
Yeah.
We have the 3 election workers, and they're taking at least one of those, and Kristen goes. I'm going to be going now tomorrow too. So just, people from our office and the temporary election people. So we try to get as many as we can to get them out. I think today there isn't as many, but when we get up to some of the ULC and that, then there's more people. So we try to take more to make it a little quicker. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you. Sheriff?
Good morning. I don't have a lot. Bob's putting in a travel request to go to San Diego. I'll be putting one in to go to Watertown next month for the sheriff's conference. Anyway, we have 24 in jail, so it's a manageable. We're doing some cleaning and painting and different things until the state's attorney loads me up. But we'll everything's going good. We put out a press release this morning on been getting complaints on it happens every year, but it seems like we're getting more complaints this year than we have in the past on harvest season and passing slow-moving equipment in passing zones and no passing zones and so forth. So I may put a blurb in the shopper too, because that reaches a lot of individuals. I think the shopper's got like 22,000 not subscribers, but some of it isn't always in Brookings County, but that gets probably out to the farmers and people probably more than anyone. So hopefully we don't have any accidents. Then the only other thing that we have is October 30th, we're invited out to, my department's invited out to Basin Electric for a tour. It's kind of an annual tour, but they did some remodeling in their control room and did some new things out there, so that'll be interesting to see that. I have new deputies that have never been out there, so that's a good for them to take a tour and kind of know the layout and so forth in case we do have an emergency out there and so forth. And also on next week, part of my department, we're going to qualify out at the OAC. That'll be the first time that my department's qualified out there in the area in the morning, so we're going to qualify out there. And kind of anxious to see what my guys think of the place. Kristen keeps it pretty clean out there, so it looks good out there. So other than that, I'm looking for a patrol car yet. Thought I had one, but evidently it was sold. So I don't know what... I guess my question to the commission would be is that if I can't find one to buy in 2018 because the 2019s are out, would it be a possibility if I ordered one, that extra car, and it didn't come in until after the first of the year, can I earmark that insurance money and contingency to pay in 2019?
Are we allowed to do that with our audit?
I asked Stacy, and she...
And I told you to find a car this year.
Yeah.
What we would do is we would do the contingency transfer, and then the money wouldn't get spent. It would roll into fund balance, and then we'd have to do like a supplemental budget hearing in 2019 in order to spend that money, and then to put the $12,000 back into his 19 budget so he'd be allowed to spend it. So it's doable, but it's a process and more tracking. So my recommendation is still to find a car yet in 2018.
I'm working
at
on it.
possible.
I'm working on it. So,
I have
okay.
a 2002 Suburban.
Nice.
It's got about 245, starts about 50-50.
You know, it'd probably go good for another 3 or 4 years.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay.
I have a question on the issue with the roads that you're going to put something in the shop around. Are you doing any public service announcements on the radio on that sort of thing?
No, that's probably a good idea, though. Yeah. Yeah. For some reason, we got more complaints this year than normal, so I don't know why, but yesterday I had like 3 complaints. A combine going up in no passing, and yeah, it was in a no passing zone, and a car whipped right on a hill. So it was just amazing that nobody else was coming at the time. So.
That'd be a great topic for a public service
Yeah.
announcement. So.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. Anything else? Dick?
Good morning. Just one item is all. Last Thursday, I met with Larry Dean and Greg, I believe his last name is Walker, from the DOT, updating or preparing to update our highway system maps. And what he'll do is go back and see if there's any recollection of resolutions been done that he hasn't recognized. If they are, then he'll bring them back with upgrades. Otherwise, your highway map cannot change unless the Department of Transportation signs an executive order recognizing that change, and then it can take place. So that's what I'll be working on, just as one of my last house cleaning chores, so to speak, to get our maps not only in up-to-date fashion, but also function. So that was it. So unless there's any questions.
Thank you. Moving on to regular business. Item A, action to declare items as surplus to be sold at auction or disposed of. There are 2 items listed, a Nikon Coolpix camera and 3 sets of blue half lockers. Would we have a motion?
Move approval.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, we'll start this. I'm not sure we'll get finished with this before we have our 9 o'clock regularly scheduled item, but next item we've got is discussion on the highway superintendent.
It's actually not till 9:30.
Oh, it's at 9:30?
We have plenty of time.
Okay, all right. Our next item is discussion on the highway superintendent position. And Dick, maybe we'll have you come back up. Stacy, do you want to lead this discussion?
I've included the job description in the packet, and I sent that out to you next week or last week after Dick had announced that he's going to be retiring at the end of the year. I guess what I'm looking for is if there's any specific changes that you want done to the job description itself, and then just a discussion on how you'd like to advertise that position, and then the interview process. I mean, we've done it different ways before with department head positions. When the equalization director position was open, all 5 commissioners took part in the interview process. For others, we've done 2 of you. So I guess there needs to be some discussion, looking for some direction on that. So as we get to that point, we can plan accordingly. So I guess to start with the job description, I did add one thing in there. I think, did it get highlighted? I might not have gone in. It didn't get highlighted. So it's the 4th bullet point. I put some wording in there regarding the Bridge Improvement Grant Program for the superintendent's job description, because that is a pretty significant change since we've had this job posted in the past.
How old is this job description? Besides that, how long has it been since this job description's been updated?
Well, the last time we would have used it was when we hired Dick.
And when was that, Dick? I don't know. That was
2013.
Because I read the job description and I wondered if it's actually exactly the way we want it. And I talked a little bit with Dick, and you can tell us what you think about this. But for example, that part that talks about the fingers, I think on the, go down to skills for a second, Stacy. It is physical and the physical demands part. I think how we have that written is odd, and I think that needs to be updated. And Dick, I believe I'm correct on this. You have to be able to lift a certain number of pounds and stuff. You do some physical things besides just administrative, and this job description does not reflect that at all. That you have to be able to lift so many pounds or stand for long periods of time, or your standard kinds of things that you would see in a job description for a physically active job.
Right. Yeah, like Laura would probably list it as occasionally be able to lift like 50 pounds or something like that, not frequently. And then basically my involvement in the physical work would be probably in the assisting with lifting or whatever, should someone have, move a pump or something like that. That's definitely would be not necessary, so to speak, but it would be absolutely doable on occasion.
And I just wondered if you had an opportunity to read through this job description, if there are other things that are inaccurate. I saw a couple other things, but I want to know what you
Right,
think.
yeah, no, I haven't looked at it recently. I think Stacy's comment on the bridge program would be a definite addition. I think probably from a work environment, again, occasionally exposed to weather is good to keep included in there.
Is it accurate that the noise level is usually quiet?
As long as you're sitting in your office with the door closed and nobody's there pounding on the door, it would be. Normally, it would be much noisier.
And I don't know why we have that sentence in there myself, but I don't know that we can fix the job description necessarily during a commission meeting, but I'm thinking that this needs to be looked at and maybe updated, and Laura and Dick and I don't know, maybe even Larry, if Larry was interested, because you have more expertise in this area than I've got. But I just think this job description needs to be updated a little bit myself. What do the rest of you think?
Stacy, you're right on the bridge program, but let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 bullet points down from yours. Could you include the bridge program with that? Right there, yep.
This really speaks to this really isn't the 5-year plan that we submit. This is more speaking to what Dick turns in at budget time, his short range and long range plans, more for budgeting purposes.
But I mean, then the next one, coordinate the state of transportation on programs and plans. I mean, we could put it all into one, or it's fine too.
I mentioned the 5-year plan up in the my bullet point with the big. I think it's two different things. There's the 5-year road and bridge plan that goes with the big grants.
Okay.
And then there's what you plan kind of in-house at budget time, short range and long range plans.
Right. Usually it's the 5-year short range plan of programs and a 20-year long range plan of equipment and purchases, capital assets, usually.
Yep.
I guess, I don't know if this is the time to discuss it, but one thing that I think would be an important change is maybe get, I would look more at business planning and formulating projections and cost. I work with pretty large numbers money-wise, and it helps to have a little bit of background so you at least understand fund balance versus current budget versus, looking at the whole system. I don't want to say globally, but you just want to get a better business grasp of what you're trying to achieve and proposing in the future. I think would help for a person in this position.
Dick, did you complete the South Dakota Association of County Highway Superintendent certification class?
Oh, yeah. A couple of times I went through.
And I thought that might be something under certifications that we could put in there.
Or is that something they haven't done it yet, that they could say are willing to do?
Correct. I mean, it's basically, it's what a highway superintendent does, his responsibilities, it's a very good course.
They do that every year, the day before the short course. And they also do a pretty good job of going through and explaining some of the statutes that a highway superintendent needs to follow.
Yep.
So,
Well, I think Dick and I could probably get together with Laura and go through this with a fine-tooth comb and present something different or something with the changes in an upcoming meeting. As far as advertising, we will push this into every possible place that we can get it to, including, with I think the Highway Association, LTAP, probably would be able to help us maybe some. Would they be, do they have an outlet for job postings?
Yeah, that or that countywide one that Christie sends out, whatever.
Work with the association.
I wonder if you shouldn't maybe come up with an updated version, email it out, see if we can get a consensus. I'd like not to wait 2 weeks before we start advertising.
Yeah. And then as far as the interview process goes, is that something that all 5 of you want to be a part of?
Before we start on that, I have one more comment on the job description. I don't like how we have the education and experience portion written, because I think it's going to eliminate people that maybe would be qualified from applying in it. And when you guys look at the revision on it, to say more something like bachelor's degree in construction management or related field. I mean, if we had a civil engineer apply, maybe that had some highway department. No, but that kind of thing. We don't want to discourage people.
Yep.
I just want it to be a little bit broader, so we're not just saying that particular type of degree. And then let's go on to, what do you all think about, is it your preference that all 5 of us do the interview?
Most of the time.
Yeah. And that's what we've done before for department head positions, and I think that would work well this time.
All of you?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'd ask you this question. Has your job, and since you've been here, have you felt that your job has changed a little bit more with this with business portions of it? Like you're bringing up that you're not spending as much time out in the field as much with there. You're spending more time preparing budgets, preparing bids, preparing stuff like that. Has your job, you feel like the job has changed a little bit?
Absolutely. One thing I visited with Stephanie about last week was there's getting to be so much administrative regulations and guidelines that need attention, maybe not daily, but you can't push them off to the side of your desk and say, I'll take care of it when you need it. The other thing that I have the luxury, I have 2 excellent foremen, and they take care of the daily operations, and they check in with me if they have a question or whatever. But it really frees me up to do that extra bit when you, as a board, ask for information. I hope I'm giving you the information that you're looking for. And if I was the type that felt I had to be out there daily to make sure the day-to-day stuff gets done, it would really cut me short on possibly compiling some of this other information. Same way with the bridge program, as far as the big grants, it takes a little bit of time to analyze and see where our money is best spent, and you as a board realize that from the 2018 applications. It was of more value to us, cost benefit wise, to put more money towards these particular projects to get it going. And maybe some of these others down the future, maybe putting money up front and having it shovel ready is going to be a benefit to us. But those types of things, if I was out day to day and I'm running like today, they're up chip sealing, we're waiting for oil to see if they'll deliver it in a timely manner, that would be time I wouldn't be spending on other things that I feel is a little more important. Also with our personnel changes, we're looking for a mechanic that those types of things, they just take time, and you got to sit down and investigate, and you can't be 2 places at once is, I guess, the best way to describe it.
So administrative is a good word for it. You spend more time probably doing administrative duties than that's probably the thing that's changed the most than it was than when
Definitely.
you first were hired rather than the hands-on.
Definitely. And also with our purchases, as you know, I sign off on all claims, so I really take a close look at that stuff, and I want to make sure that what we're paying for is what we got and what we ordered. So that's another aspect of it that, you just don't want to go through the motions. And it takes a conscious effort to do that, I believe.
How many people are working at the highway department?
21 counting myself.
And
So the
that's-
guys will tell you there's only 20.
So that's different than what it says in the job description, by the way. That's a different number than we have in there.
I don't think that includes the part-time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anybody, anything else on process, how you would like to proceed? It would be nice if we could get the job description done and start advertising as soon as possible. So if possible, it'd be nice to have overlap between our
Mhm.
retiring person and
Yeah.
our incoming person.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Yeah. Another thing that is of value is to get a person that's willing to work with Terry in the state's attorney's office. They are such a help, and a lot of times if I've already put my foot in my mouth, she's good at getting it out of my mouth, and if I have enough sense to talk to her first, she's good at keeping me in line. So.
Yeah, it's called a
Thank
golden
you.
shoehorn.
okay.
Just one other question on this direct supervisory responsibilities. It says that one of them includes interviewing, hiring, and training employees. That's not done centrally through our HR department. That's handled separately by.
She sits in on the interviews, and she does the formal process. If I give her the recommendation of who I'd like to hire, and then she does a background check. But once they come on board and they've filled out the paperwork in Laura's office, then I go through the step-by-step orientation, and we also go through a training for our employees that covers us for MSHA requirements within 30 days. That is a must.
I just wanted to know the relationship between HR and your department, because it looks
Oh,
like
okay.
here there isn't any.
Yeah.
This responsibility says you do it.
Right.
So, in combination with HR, I think would
Right.
be an addition to that. So
I guess the
somebody
way I
understands that they're not just totally responsible for the hiring process, that there is help for that.
Right. It's kind of like making sure that I fill out the notice to fill a position, and that comes to you, and once you give us, then she'll start looking, and then it turns it over to me. So I guess I like to look at it, I like to use her expertise instead of possibly making a wrong move.
Anybody else? Thank you, Dick.
Thank you.
Moving on to Communities of Excellence. Item number C. Stacy?
So I've been kind of emailing back and forth with BEDC Director Al Houghton about the Communities of Excellence program. The first thing to note is that there are going to be conference calls the first and third Wednesdays of each month, except for October. It's just the first Wednesday. He did say that it would be helpful if the county had a point person there at those sessions. It's not required, but it would be helpful. It does not have to be a county commissioner. And they're meeting a half hour before the call and a half hour following the call. I think the call is at 11, so they meet from 10:30 until 12:30 the first and third Wednesdays. He said once we get kind of further into the program, there's going to be some like focus group type discussions and some other opportunities for input, but he's not sure exactly what that looks like just yet. And so he said basically the county can be involved as little or as much as it wants to be. So that's kind of the first piece of it. And they've got those calls kind of scheduled out in good detail, kind of what each call is going to be about through, it actually goes through September of next year already. So it's a year-long commitment to that process. The second piece to this, there's a workshop coming up on November 13th. It's called Baldridge 101. This, again, is not a requirement. This actually isn't really, it's related to the Communities of Excellence because it's the Baldridge process, but it's really not part of the program that we're doing. This is just an opportunity for those who want to participate to see what this is all about. Anyone can participate in this. It is a little bit spendy. It's a day-long program. I think it goes 8:30 to 4:30, and it's $650 per person. I think then the cost goes down as you send more people to, if your organization sends additional people to this workshop, then the cost goes down. I think if there's 4 people, it's $300 per person, and if you have 5 or more, it's $275 per person. But again, not a requirement because it's the Baldridge process, but it's not really part of the program that we're doing, but it may be of interest to us to, send somebody to see what this is all about. Other than that, I asked about, additional expenses moving forward as part of this, and he said there really won't be. He doesn't foresee any expenses moving forward. So right now, those are kind of the two main things, the workshop and then the phone conferences.
The phone conferences are going to be doing what exactly?
That's my understanding is that is meeting with the group that's conducting the process.
Okay.
And each session has different topics. Like tomorrow's is the introduction to the Communities of Excellence Learning Collaborative. And then you're starting your journey, and that's in November, a couple of meetings. And then where do you want to go as a community? That each session has a topic
And there's
and kind of an outline already.
right, and there's 7 that conference calls. There's 7 other communities, or we're the 7th, that are all going through the same process. And on that conference call, they all will have discussion. And there's 4 people from Brookings here that have committed to be on that conference call, and all of them to partake in that conversation with all the other ones. The half hour before is to prepare discussion, and then the half hour after is to
Follow up from the
with
discussion.
what
Yeah.
just happened on the discussion. And so, do you have the list of communities?
Yep. It's us, McCook, which I believe is South Dakota. McCook. I don't know if it's McCook County. I mean, it's in San Diego, North Regions, California, St. Cloud, Minnesota, and St. Louis.
So there's 5 of them? Is that what it is?
Brookings, McCook, San Diego, St. Cloud, St. Louis. 5.
5. I was thinking
Yeah.
they were trying to get 7. So, but, and I think what they had talked about was all these other entities that they identified. If there was something that fit kind of in our expertise, that's where they'd want maybe our representative to be there to take discussion, to help participate. So the group of 4 that was going to present would have that knowledge and be prepared. And so, like they said, we could have a county person there at every meeting and partake in it and do the whole work and everything, or we could be there at a time when needed, I guess, type of thing. So
Yeah.
it kind of depends, I guess, what we want to get out of it as a board, for, how we, as learning this concept, I guess.
Yep. And they did say for continuity's sake, it'd be nice to have the same person attend those conference calls each time.
Who are the people that are already attend?
Al Houghton, Jennifer Johnson, Carla Gatsky, and Carla is the president of the board. And then there's one other person I'm trying to remember who it was.
I've seen the names too, and I can't remember.
That are willing to do all making a commitment to all four.
Who that is.
Madam Chair, I think it is very important that the person that we select as a commissioner. I really do. I mean, we've got skin in this game, and that person has some, I mean, I think has a better working knowledge of what we hope to get out of this and where we want to move the whole county and community. And so I think it's important that that person be a commissioner.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Krogman, are you interested in participating in all these conference calls?
Not necessarily. I just happen to be there to cover you, so I know what's going on.
And I was supposed to cover the chair.
So,
See, and I was thinking that it might be helpful to have Stacy do it, but let me say the reason for that, and then I don't know if she has an interest, but she could report back to us about what's going on, and would have, this is not going to be just a one-year process. It's going to be longer than that, and then hopefully we're going to do things down the road, and hopefully Stacy's the person we're sure that's going to be here in 2-3 years. But what were your thoughts talking to Al? Did it sound like it needed to be a commissioner, either one of you, when
my thought it was probably would be.
a commissioner?
Yeah. But,
Okay.
You know, but then again, Al made a comment to her that it doesn't have to be either.
Uh-huh.
So.
Yeah, he said it doesn't have to be. My only concern with just the timing of that is that if it were a different day, even Thursdays would be better for me. Wednesdays a lot of times we have joint jurisdiction on Wednesdays that I cover that would maybe conflict with that. So at some point I can see some conflicts with my schedule coming up with that time frame. But that being said, I'm willing to do it as well. Just have to do some workarounds with some things.
Commissioner Bartley and I have the same, we're both joint jurisdiction too, but that doesn't necessarily mean we couldn't make that work. So the two of you think it should be a commissioner? Is that what you're saying?
I'm up. Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. I guess if Stacy's interested, that's fine too. Again, like you said too, you made the comment that who's going to be around here in a couple of years. This gets done in a year, and now you're talking a year, and you may have commissioners that have just gone through it and may not be around after that too. So does that affect on?
And it is longer than a year, right? I understood it was longer than a year.
Hit it too many times. The conference calls are scheduled out through September of next year.
Okay.
That's why I think it's important it's a commissioner on those conference calls, at least to get things started.
And they said that it does not have to be the same person every time?
Not necessarily, but just to have that working knowledge at each, to know what's going on from meeting to meeting. I mean, I think he suggested that just for continuity's sake, it be the same person as much as possible, I think.
What do you think?
You said the times are when? 11:30 to.
It would be 10:30 to 12:30.
10:30 to 12:30.
Yep. 10:30 to 11 would be kind of pre-call, 11 to noon, and then noon to 12 to 12:30 kind of post-call stuff.
Yeah. Commissioner Jensen, what do you think?
I'm weighing towards having Stacy do it myself.
I don't think you said where you were leaning.
Well, if it's going to be a commissioner and we're worried about time frame, obviously one is not going to be with us. Two of you are going to serve 4 more years and 2 of us have 2 years left. So I don't think as far as being a commissioner and it turning over, so to speak, that's an issue. Stacy does a good job of reporting back to us on things that happen in those things, but at the same time, having either the chairman or the vice chairman be the designee would be probably the way to go as far as speaking for this board. Stacy has no authority to make any decisions if they need some decisions made along the process too, without coming back to us. So that concerns me. And there may not be any decisions that they need to make on these conference calls, but at the same time, there are. They're going to ask for opinions, and to keep her out of the fire, so to speak, if she gives an opinion that's contrary to someone on this commission, that can be an issue. So for her in particular, unintended as it might be, obviously if it's a commissioner who makes a decision that's contrary, well, it's the game up here. So that would be my concern, is that Stacy would feel like her hands are tied at some of these things, not to make a commission or a commitment to a point of view without review from us, if it were important. And there may not be any of those issues, but if there is, I don't want to put her under that responsibility and that exposure, I guess, for the rest of us not to approve.
And Stacy, is the person on the telephone from their office, or do they go somewhere for the telephone conference?
Everybody from Brookings, I think, is together on the
Okay.
telephone conference.
guess
You
it'd
go
be
there
a
because you meet a half hour ahead to discuss things, and then you're all together as a group for the phone conference, and then you're there for that half hour following the conference call to kind of wrap up and do any general discussions, moving forward type stuff. So it's going somewhere. It's not just being at your office and jumping on a conference call.
But like Mike and what Commissioner Bartley says, Stacy being out of the heat on an opinion, if we have one commissioner speaking for the whole commission, are we in agreement with that commissioner also on subject?
At least we can take the heat.
Yeah.
I'd hate to have her taking it from us.
But I mean, are there going to be opinions that are?
She takes it already. So.
If I would be willing to do part of it if there was somebody else to be a co-chair type of person, an alternate, because I have, with work stuff coming up and different things like that, if I could call somebody to say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it, or something like that.
I would be
then
willing to do that.
Okay.
I just can't commit
And I'm in the same boat.
2
it's gonna be tough for me
Wednesdays a month to
for
that.
2 hours.
Yeah,
It's a big commitment.
it's a big
It
commitment.
is a big commitment.
So I'd be willing to do it. I'm not, like I said, we may not be at all the meetings, that kind of stuff, but if there's something we have to be there, if I could have had a co-chair type of person that we could alternate, I guess we'd call it, I'd be willing to do it.
So are you available tomorrow at 10:30? That's the first conference call.
I actually can't. I have a continuing education class at 9 o'clock that goes till noon, so. Now, do we need to be there for that first one? Do we need to be there for that first one?
The first one, the synopsis is Introduction to the Communities of Excellence 2026 Learning Collaborative. Introductions and overview of the year, presentation of pre-work assignments, basic definitions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's your syllabus.
it is, yeah.
Well, like I said, I can't be there tomorrow, but I will put it in my planner for the rest of the meetings.
And I can send you this information to Ryan, and I think Leanne has, but I can send it off again. I don't know where they're meeting. I could reach out to Al and see.
pretty sure
I think it's at their office.
It is.
So who
Yeah.
would be available tomorrow?
I have one hearing in the morning marked off on my calendar, but I can't tell if it's at 10 or 11. If it's at 10, I should be done by 10:30 and be able to be there. I might be just a few minutes late.
Okay.
And it's out at BEDC?
I believe so. I can find out. I can talk to Al and find out where it is. I think
guess so.
And then Commissioner Bartley said that if I can't, he would go. So I will find out if my calendar is, if I can make
Okay.
it work. If I can't, I'll call him.
Okay. And then we have 6 minutes left. What about the workshop that I discussed? It's
When is it again?
November 13th. It's from 8, it's all day, 8:30 to 4:30. It's actually out at Dakota Prairie Elementary School in their community room out there. It is, I mean, if we send 1, 2, or 3 people, it's $650 per person to do this one-day session. And again, this isn't, it's related to the community of excellence, but it's really not a part of the program that we're taking, that we're a part of. It's related to it, but it's not part of it. Does that make sense?
Is that in here?
No,
It'd be great if you wanted to go. Commissioner Bartley, and I don't think he said it into his mic, says he might be able to go.
I'd have to check my schedule, but the question is do we want to spend that money to somebody, or do we want anybody that wants to go, we go with it?
I don't know.
Also, I don't know if we have enough people.
First of all, do we feel it's necessary to send somebody?
Could you tell us again the agenda for it?
There's not really an agenda, but it's going to be talking about learning methods, tools, and best practices that improve organizational results, learn and practice ways to improve leadership effectiveness, customer service, workforce engagement, and capability, operational performance, innovation, and other organizational processes. Improve and sustain results in areas such as financial performance, customer satisfaction and retention, workforce engagement, productivity, cycle time, error rates, and waste, product, service, performance, and more. Network and learn from leaders and professionals also interested in continuous improvement in organizational excellence.
275 member chamber?
No, has nothing to do with chamber memberships. So it's $650 per person. I believe if we get, what did I write down? 4 people, it's $300 per person, and 5 or more, it's $275 per person. It might be of interest to some of our department heads as well. I mean, it sounds like something that, and if we get 5, $275, if there's interest among department heads, if we could get 5, then it's $275 over across several people's budgets rather than.
That's a good idea.
What department heads would you suggest or have interest in, since they're all sitting here?
Any of them, really. I mean,
Is there anyone that would be interested in going? That would be great.
Don't all jump up and down at once.
There's 5 of you over there.
There's 3 out there.
I don't know. I mean, I think it would be good. I don't think it's going to be a bad workshop. I think it's going to be good for anybody. It's just whether or not you can go, and if you have that in your travel budget to do it. If we can get 5, it's $275 each. But it's a day's commitment.
It's at the grade school.
It's here in town at Dakota Prairie. There's no travel. It's just here in town. November 13th. Tuesday, and it's not a commission day. I think I looked.
Day after Veterans Day.
Yeah, we are off that Monday. We're off Monday with the Veterans Day holiday, and then it's the next day, that Tuesday, the 13th of November.
And Vicki, I don't know if you're interested, but if you're not interested, because our long-term planning. Is there somebody in your office that might be a good person to send to that? Would that be? Kristen, are you interested?
I don't know if there's a deadline to register. I'd have to look that up, but I can do some looking and send this off to department heads too. I'll do that.
And did the 2 of you say you're interested? So you could be 2 of the 5?
We'll see. we need a fifth to make the 275.
Okay.
or something, I could-
Okay,
Because, yeah, I mean, I would be interested in attending that.
great.
Yeah, I would be. So, and that, so far, I think that works well into my schedule. So yeah, I'll get it out to the rest of the department heads and see if we can get 5 of us to go. So with that, I think we're at 9:30.
Okay, we have a regularly scheduled agenda item at 9:30, discussion on the riparian buffer strip resolution. And Chris, if you want to come up, and Jay, if you want to come up and put your names on the record for our listening public, and we'll take it from there. Would you introduce yourself for the?
Certainly. Jay Gilbertson. I'm the manager of the East Dakota Water Development District here in town.
Chris?
Chris Lilla, Director of Equalization, Brookings County.
And
You want me to just kind of give a background on where we're
Yes.
at with this? So, and you guys jump in and correct me where, because I'm not an expert. I just pretend to be one on this topic. Again, this is just a discussion item for today. We're not approving any resolutions. We're just kind of looking for some direction from the commission on how to proceed. So the state law changed July 1st, and to allow for that reduction in land value within 120 feet of a tributary to one of these lakes, rivers, or streams, and it's being used as a riparian buffer strip. The lakes, rivers, and streams are listed in administrative rule, and I included that so these are the lakes, and this is, and the Lone River is the Big Sioux River, and these are the lakes that you see in front of you in Brookings County. Basically, what we're trying to get to with this resolution is kind of one of two things. To either spell out the individual tributaries to these lakes and to the Big Sioux that would qualify to be part of the riparian, if they did have the riparian buffer strip, that they would qualify under this resolution to apply for that the lower valuation. Or do we want to list them separately, or do we want to just say any tributary in Brookings County to any of these lakes or the Big Sioux, and then kind of put it on Chris's shoulders, so to speak, to say, yes, it is, no, it isn't. And then when we get to equalization boards, that would be something that the commission then would ultimately approve, kind of as a separate thing, like we do all of the approvals of different things now. That would be another additional one. So different counties have done it different ways. I included some resolutions. I know Coddington County, Watertown, they listed out, you can see Sioux Creek, Mahoney Creek, Mud Creek. They went through the process of listing their specific tributaries. Grant County did the same thing. Hamlin County did the same thing. And then we get to Moody County, and they did not. They decided to just say, the Director of Equalization will decide what a tributary is to any of, instead of listing them out separately. So we have examples of several counties, doing it one way, and then Moody County chose to do it a different way. And these have all been, I believe, adopted by their various commissions already. So basically what we're looking for is direction from the board, and these guys can fill you in on all of the details, but we're looking for some direction on how you would like your resolution to look. Do you want to go through the process of listing everything out in the resolution, or not, basically?
Madam Chair. Go ahead. Chris, what is your preference?
Well, I've worked with Leanne on this a little bit, and my suggestion was to do the blanket. Let's not list anything. The actual codified law, the part that they added, it says, in addition, the Board of County Commissioners may by resolution authorize the Director of Equalization to treat any agricultural land within 120 feet of a tributary to any lake, river, stream specified. They already have their list. So in my opinion, it's already there. If it's tributary to something that already exists, then if we list something and we miss something, they're not. If the state goes and revamps their list, adds something else, and we don't have it listed, we've cut our throats, and we got to do another resolution. My suggestion was, we already know what's there. If it connects to that or is adjacent to that and runs to that, my thoughts is let's leave it wide open, just say any river tributary stream, just like they have in the codified law, that's already to this. My process will be when somebody comes in, and I've got one right now that possibly he's been after me. He applied the first year and was denied because he wasn't on an approved. And I told him, this is coming. I know they're working on it. He's made application now. If we end up not doing that, we're going to have one angry taxpayer. And it goes to the point of my water leads to this water that leads to something that's approved and I'm not. And that's what this is supposed to entail. My suggestion is to leave it open and blank. We never know what's going to happen. I mean, you get some torrential rain, something, it's probably unforeseeable. The waterways are established. But if something were to cut a new channel or maybe a diversion ditch or something were to come in to Brookings for drainage or something like that, well, if it's not on our list, we've cut our throat. It's already there, in my opinion. So my process would be, basically, if I get an application that isn't on an approved, what I will be doing is I will be getting the maps. I will be tracing all of that for you. It's not my decision. It's your decision. So I will bring you at county board time all of the information and say, here's the map, here's the outline, here's the water that is approved, here's how it connects to it. You decide. That's my thoughts.
Thank you.
And I understood, Jay, you had a couple of thoughts on how our proposed ordinance was written. Is that correct?
Well, certainly. And having been involved in both the original buffer legislation and then the amendment that we're talking about here earlier this year, I guess I would, if you look at the original list that the state used, and the one that's referenced in code, it's under administrative rules. The state did not leave it open to interpretation. They didn't just say the Big Sioux River and then walk away, or Madera Creek. And I would note that the list of rivers that's up on the board is incomplete. There are any number of additional Battle Creek, College Creek, Deer Creek, Madera, a whole bunch of others that are actually on the state's list right now. And what the state did is they said, okay, it's Madera Creek from its confluence with the Big Sioux River upstream to the South Dakota-Minnesota border. So there's no question as to what is Madera Creek. Now, in that case, it runs out of the state. It's a little different. There are going to be other instances. Let's take 6 Mile Creek. It's listed from the confluence with the Big Sioux River upstream to a fixed point. It's about 2 miles north of White, something like that. And then it stops. And one of the applicants I know last year that came in was a gentleman who had property on 6 Mile Creek, but he was not on the state's part of 6 Mile Creek. And hence the reason for making the adjustments. And, there's the whole poster child down in Lincoln County. If the Director of Equalization is comfortable making these calls each and every time they come in, then I would say go ahead and follow the Moody County list. My counsel to Hamlin and Coddington and Grant was, let's do what the state's already done. The state didn't say Madera Creek. They said Madera Creek from this point to this point. Because as you get high up into the watershed, there's probably diminishing returns on making changes. Yes, anything you do to improve water quality in Brookings County will somehow affect the Big Sioux River. But things that are done 5 miles off a trib to a trib to a trib to a trib are going to have nominal impact. And so what I did when working with the 3 counties to the north was basically emulate what the state administrative rules look like. And we started, in this case, taking 6 Mile as the example. It would be from that point, which is in the state list, upstream to the dual county line. And so there is a fixed, easy to understand, no doubt about it, description of what land is eligible and what land is not. Now, certainly, we never get everything. And if you've got somebody who came in last year and said, this is what I'd like to do, we can describe the water body in question in a way to include those folks. But yeah, you've got two options. My inclination is to go with the more thorough description because that's replicating the state's original, the list, the original list on which a lot of the spaces work is spelled out that way. It isn't that complicated to come up with a description, and we've done that for 3 counties. But if you folks would like to be the ones making the call, that's fine. It's your take.
Commissioner Krogman?
So your interpretation of the rule is if we decided to identify Madera Creek or those, that we could still, anything that ran into that, we could still do a buffer, a tributary to those creeks, or is the main river Big Sioux River, and we're talking the tributaries to the Big Sioux River? So if we go along and add more identification like you talked about and the other counties have done, does that open up the tributaries that go into those creeks?
In my opinion, you would not. If you said, okay, we've got the Big Sioux River,
Yep.
that's there. So if it's a tributary to that, and we identify it on our list saying, you know, Creek X, which starts at the Big Sioux River and at the confluence of the Big Sioux River and runs east to whatever point, then that is it. If there's another main waterway or another creek Y that leads to that, then that wouldn't be on your list. And if we wanted to include that, in my opinion, at a later time, we would have to update our resolution and do another resolution. That's why when I was talking with Leanne, my thoughts is let's just leave it open. You make the decision. If here's a water X coming to the Big Sioux, and you would want to list that, that's fine. But if Y, if somebody comes in and has a good case or a good application, has good reasoning, they are a buffer strip. I mean, that's the intent, is let's filter these impurities from getting to the water. Well, yes, the impact is less the farther away you get from the Big Sioux, but does it really matter if I dump 5,000 pounds of mercury in Creek Y over here and it runs to Creek X, which runs to the Big Sioux? It's still mercury. Yes, the impact isn't as great because it's farther away, it's diminished, but that's not the intent, in my opinion, of what this law is supposed to be doing. If it's a buffer strip and it's not being farmed and it's not agricultural and it connects to the waterways, that's the intent, in my opinion, of the law. And I don't want you to tie your hands and say, well, here's our list, sorry you're not on it. You look at it and say, I'll show you the maps, I'll give you the evidence and say, here's the water that's listed and this connects, and you can clearly see it connects to here and clearly to there. Now, in Hamlin County's defense, they don't have the beacon, they don't have the aerial imagery, they don't have the tools that we do here. For me to do this from my job, it's relatively simple. I mean, I can look at several years of imagery, and if I can see that there is an active waterway running in 2014, 2016, 2018, you can pretty much assume that's water. It's not a creek that was wet and is now dry. That would be kind of the information I would present to you at a board in April to say, here's the maps, here's where it goes, here's the buffer strip, here's the soils that are impacted. And fall back a step further. These reductions, if a farmer saves $200 a year in property taxes, that's a pretty good amount of buffer strip. It's really a lot, because they can only go 120 feet out, and then the soils that are there are only reduced by 40%. It's not a lot of value, so...
Who administers it afterwards? So who goes and looks to make sure that the buffer strips are not being grazed?
It's an annual application they certify on there. I don't have the luxury to go out and look at every one of them. If we discover one is fraudulent, then there's steps that we can take for that. But it's an annual application every year that they have to come in and apply and say, yes, it still is, yes, this. We're not going to go out and measure is their grass 3 inches tall. I mean, that's the provisions of the law. It can't be mowed under 3 inches. It can't be grazed between these dates, things like that. So,
Commissioner Jensen?
The question I have is, what qualifies as a tributary? I mean, is it a 4 foot wide stream? Is it, I mean, Chris said, I mean, how do you determine that?
that would be your call. And I would say any continuous flowing water, whether it's like you've got Oakwood, you've actually got 3 lakes. Well, obviously, each lake is a tributary. They are connected to each other, physically connected. A tributary, in my opinion, is a flowing stream of water that isn't dry, that is water. So,
And I mean, it's been changing in the last few years because of the drain tile installed and stuff. There's currently waterways that would go dry, and now they're wet.
That's
all year long.
That's kind of why I want you to leave it open. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, and if we spell out a list, and all of a sudden waterways change and they start holding water for 3, 4, 5 consecutive years. I mean, we already have inundated by floodwater law 3 years. Well, if I can show you that there has been, in my imagery, there's water here, 3 consecutive flyovers, well, you can probably assume it's water. So that's where I would kick it back to you. They don't give me the power to make the decision. I just gather the evidence and the applications and do my research and present it to you. You make your decision as a board. I just didn't want to see you guys tie your hands, is my thoughts.
When this originally came in front of us, what we said to Chris is figure out something where we can give the best environmental impact. This is not going to be a big dollar item. We're not going to have tons of people applying. If we get tons of people and we can't administer it, we can change the resolution. We should be so fortunate that we have that many people that want the riparian buffer strips. I like leaving it open myself to allow Chris to do his job and to encourage more people to apply. Any other comments from anybody?
Give me an idea what type of monetary, other than the $200 for a farmer gives him a lot of riparian strips. What are we talking about if you had 50% of the eligible people applied? Give me a dollar amount. That'd be huge, but you'll never get that. If 10% applied, what would you get?
That's a very wide, broad question because it's all based on soils. What are the soils that are in 120 feet of the waterway? Are they grass soils that start out at $1,900 an acre, but they're a 30 rating? So you're down to $600 an acre. Take 40% off of that, factor it by 85, take it to the levy. Here's your taxes. If it's a crop soil, then you're at $3,900 an acre at a 0.8 rating. So you're 80% of that. So you're $2,800 an acre, factored at 85 times the levy. That's a very broad and vague question. Quite simply, I think the most that we've got right now is on a past application is down at Lake Campbell. It's a long strip on the west side of Lake Campbell. That's all pasture buffer strip there that's not farmed for that reason. And you can see on the imagery where they stopped. They purposely left. They could have farmed right up to the edge of Lake Campbell, but they left a buffer strip. That's my most, and I think it was $170 property tax reduction. Okay. That's a big piece. A lot of them are $30. They save $30 on their annual taxes.
So in your office and the amount of time you would have to spend on a yearly application process, is this going to be something that's significant or very
Right away, I was kind of concerned with that. Fortunately, we have the tools. I mean, for me, I take the application, I look at it, I would verify it, I give it to Jim. Jim buffers that water, and he's got the buffering tools within GIS to say 120 feet. He gives me the soil inventory within that. I go back. It probably takes me about 10 or 15 minutes to make all of the changes on that. If we had 1,000 of them, it would be considerable. I think what we're going to see, though, is right away we had a lot of interest. This year I've mailed everybody out that was approved last year. I've mailed them their applications this year. I've gotten one back. I've had 2 others that wanted it last year that didn't get it, that have applied for 19 pending this resolution. The amount of savings versus the time for somebody to come in here to save 10 or 12 bucks, 20 bucks, I think it's probably going to fall by the wayside.
So it's not really a dollar amount. It's whether or not they feel they can improve the water quality
the effort for them to bring in their maps, their application to drop it off, is it worth the $30 for them?
How many applications did we have last year that you bailed back out?
I think I had probably 10, and we had 7 approved.
I somewhat agree with leaving it open because that was the intent of the legislation in the first place, was protect water quality wherever you can. And this, well, they actually narrowed it down quite a bit with limiting. If we were going to limit it, I'd say it goes to the county line, and that's the only limitation.
That's my thoughts. We just wanted you to make a decision over which way you would want to go. I have no issue with leaving it open because it's already spelled out. We know what's already approved, and if it's tributary to that, then I'll give you the evidence and you'll make the decision. I'll show you the maps, I'll trace it, and then you guys
So my
can
question
decide.
is, if we use the Moody County one, and to use Jay's comment to the county line, do we add that somewhere in resolution that Moody County had, that we just say it involves Brookings County only? I mean, we know that it does, but at the same time, that's the boundaries of any tributary.
I think we would use the first one, which is ours. And I would like to see us plagiarize the second line out of the Moody County ordinance and just add it into ours, which says, in order for the land to be classified as riparian buffer strip, it shall meet the requirements of SDCL, thus and such. And just add that into what we've got, and I think we have what we need.
Yeah.
I would like the state's attorney maybe to have an opportunity to have any input in that. I think Mr. Breitzman did the drafting, but but if we just add that line in there, that protects us.
Yeah, on that
from the
initial
other
draft
direction.
that he did, one of the things that I suggested back was to reference the administrative rules. That wasn't in the first draft. And the reason why I thought that is because if they change something over here, then ours is obsolete. So if we just constantly reference the beginning point of that paragraph of the ARSD, if that changes, then your resolution is good.
Do you remember why the 3 were denied?
That one was exactly that point. 6 Mile Creek goes up to section 33, even though 6 Mile Creek continues up to the dual border.
Yep.
From dual border to section 33, it didn't. They put a endpoint on what was approved, and they were right across the road,
How about the other
half a section.
What were the other 2?
Again, not tributary. Or they were tributary, but they weren't on an approved body of water last year.
So, in your opinion, would you have qualified those 3
Yes.
if we would have had a
That
different
one in
vote?
particular up there,
Right.
I said absolutely, because the water continues. Why do you say on this side of the road you're good and over here
Well, I think
you're
we can
not?
fix that one, but the other 2.
2 of them were up there.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 of them were up there, and one was over here, over by Aurora.
Just for the record, I'm sorry, any water body, any stream, rivulet, or ditch in Brookings County is tributary to an impaired water at this point. I mean, all but the far northeast corner eventually works its way into the Big Sioux River, and so it meets that generic definition. And Campbell is considered impaired by the state, and so pretty much anything that goes off the northeast side, wherever you are in the watershed, would be considered tributary.
What I guess,
The water body.
do you anticipate anybody taking advantage of the system on this? I know it's not a huge dollar amount, but you have to, the administrative portion of it is what I worry about, is you're sending men out there, or workers or whoever you have out there trying to get it and trying to make sure it's figured out. Somebody's not taking advantage of the system. And
There's always going to be somebody that could, but the bottom line, in my opinion, is if they want to farm it and it's farmable, they're going to farm it. So if they are purposely setting aside and not farming to the water's edge, I have no problem being fair and equal and saying you're not farming it. You've left a 120-foot strip. I mean, I've got the one that down there at Campbell that's probably a 500-foot buffer strip, but I can only give them credit up to 120 feet. So they've done above and beyond. They're not getting credit for everything they're doing, but it's within the parameters of the law. So if somebody wants to go out of their way to save $20 on their tax bill and go through a lot of work,
We should encourage it.
more power to them, I guess, is my opinion. But
Okay.
so whatever way the board wants to go, I'm fine with. It would make my job easier to say, well, here's the tributaries that the board has decided is above and beyond, and when you come in here, sorry. I can see where your water runs to the tributary, but your water wasn't on their approved list, so it's out of my hands. Contact the county commission. I mean, that's essentially where it would fall back to, because then again, we put another line that says you're not qualified. I would rather put them on an agenda if it's questionable, and that would be another process that I would say would happen in April. If I could say for certainty that, yes, I can see this, I have no doubts in my mind that you as a board would approve this, I would bring it to you, and I probably wouldn't contact them. If I had questions and needed more clarification or didn't agree with it, I would notify them that, hey, you're going to be heard at the county board time. You probably want to come in and speak to you folks why you should be getting the adjustment, if that were the case.
Well, I think I heard a consensus that on our next agenda, we'll put in the draft that we've got. If it's all right with y'all, we'll add that line that gives us some authority. If we have a taxpayer that complains that we gave somebody a tax break, that we've got that line in there. Maybe we could pass that by the state's attorney's office, have it on the agenda for action at our next meeting. Is that okay with everybody? Thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Stacy, are you able to do your commission report, or should we wait? Okay. Anything from the state's attorney's office?
Well, last night we had the Brookings Empowerment Project Forum. It was really good. It was held here last night. We had some really good speakers and panelists. And Friday I met with the Chief Civil State's Attorney for Minnehaha County, along with administrative members with Sandra Roosh and Compass Health, to go over some of the forensic billing now that the law was passed on July 1st, kind of trying to get some clarification. We discussed a few issues, and I passed that information along to Representative Reed yesterday, and I believe there's going to be a meeting tomorrow in Minnehaha County with Sanford and Avera and different entities down there. So working with them to try to get some clarification on what is forensic and what is not. So we can kind of help victims and help with the being compliance with the law, but still have some more guidance as to what the county would be responsible for. So I am working on that with Minnehaha. So.
Great. Anything else? Then, even though we're a couple minutes early, I think we're going to go ahead and start our 10 o'clock scheduled item, Madera Township drainage. And Mr. Richards, if you'd like to come on up. And then once you get seated, would you say your name for the people listening to
Good morning, Mark Richards, Madera Township Chairman, I guess, actually, this year. So I guess it's been a couple months since we've been here. And while I don't have great information to share, at least as an update to the commission, since our last meeting, we have contacted Banner and Associates, as we talked at that time, to see if they would be willing to lead us through the application process with the NRCS as well as the Corps of Engineers. Speaking with Banners after that request, they did make some inquiries and have found that first, the Corps of Engineers will not look at this project prior to having it being blessed by the NRCS. So the first step we need to do is get through the NRCS. Banners pursued the NRCS a little bit, was not real enthusiastic with the response that they got, and got back to us and basically said, asked the question a little bit that, how far do we want to go? I mean, they really see that this could potentially be a big dark hole to throw money at a little bit. And, we said we needed to at least find out yes or no, we can do this project. We can repair the dike. And so they initially contacted NRCS for our township. And NRCS got back to them and said, we would like to meet with the county. We aren't interested in meeting with the township. So at that time, Mr. Hill was contacted by Banners. And since that time, he has requested a meeting with the NRCS people. The individual that we have met with wants to bring his supervisor to this person that probably will be able to give us the answer yes or no. We have not been able to get that meeting scheduled at this time. So, but that's, so that's really where we're hung up at. I believe, you could ask Bob for sure, but I believe their supervisor's out of town for the rest of the week or something like that. And we're just behind the 8 ball on that. So we'll get that meeting set and get an answer, yes or no, from the NRCS before we pursue Corps of Engineers and everything at this point. We have had a meeting with all the landowners. I think most of them were there that are affected by this, and seem to have, everybody has agreed that the common goal that everybody in Madera Township has is to get the river back into its previous path. Is what the common goal is for everybody here. So while I don't have anything to say, yeah, we've got this and it's all the ducks are in a row, it is proceeding perhaps too slow for some, too fast for others, but it is proceeding in the right direction. So I just throw it out. If you have any questions, that's kind of where we're at. We're going to continue to plod along. Leanne has been actively involved, so I think as far as the commission, you should be, probably know as much as I do, or at least Leanne does, maybe more.
Commissioner Jensen?
At our state convention, I talked to Banner's hydrologist. You've talked to him since September 11th?
Yes.
Okay. He was asking me some questions, and he needed to get a hold of Madera.
Yeah, no, we've spoke with him since then, Larry. Yeah.
Okay.
So, as Mark said, yesterday there was a meeting, I think Bob Hill also reported on this. There was a meeting of about a dozen people from Madera Township, and I sat in on that meeting, and I hadn't heard prior to that we can't do our 404 application until after we have an agreement with NRCS. And then my understanding is, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is that NRCS says that they really can't work with the township because the township doesn't have any jurisdiction over this issue because it's not a road issue, that it has to be the county that they're dealing with because the township doesn't have any jurisdiction, okay? I don't know if that's an accurate statement, but that's the position that they're taking, which is part of the reason that it's taking so long to get the meeting set up. Right. But one of the things that as I sat and listened to those 12 people talking, and I wondered if we could ask Dick to do another administrative thing. I would like to know, when we're talking about the roads that are there in Section 9 in Madera Township, our roads and our bridges, the ones that belong to the county, if we could have somebody go out and take a look and see if we're having any damage from all this excess water, and if we are, if we could have something in writing saying what's going on, because we will be able to use this in our process as we're working with NRCS and actually with the Corps eventually. But I've heard that said here, and I've heard it said at that meeting and other places, that all this water is having an impact on what's going on with our bridges there. And I would like to know that and maybe have some kind of something more official than an opinion from a neighbor, okay? And I don't know, Dick, if you could have somebody that could go out and take a look and just let us know. Do we have a problem with the county roads and bridges that run through this area? And it's really all Section 9, is it right? Are there any other sections that are involved?
I don't have my map here,
I've got the map.
Basically, it's on the north side, or north and south side of the Sinai Road are the two sections that are the primary issues that we have, yes. It'd be between 468 and 469, so the Country Club Road to the west. And then from the Sinai Road, a mile south, and then also from the Sinai Road there, we as a township have issues with another mile of 468. This flooding, while it is they say a county and a landowner issue, we as a township have 468 that's being affected by this water, and then 217th, which is a complete disaster as a direct result of this water.
Commissioner Pierce?
Go ahead.
I believe, Dick, you've reported to us before the two structures west of the river bridge, they've taken in, the water's caused some damage to the head walls and stuff you've worked on, and we've had issues out there.
And if we could have that in the form of a written report that came back to the commission saying this is what's going on, we can use that with these other agencies as we meet with them, but we need something in writing.
That's been a problem. It goes back to our initial meeting in 2011 when, as a township board, and I can't remember if Bob was there or as a county representative, but we all were standing up on the dike with the wind blowing 20 miles an hour, chatting with everybody, and nobody had a thought of taking a note out there. And, so we didn't get things documented at all at that time, and it's creating an issue for us now.
This is Bob Hill. At the time, that was Mr. Clark was the highway superintendent. Okay. Commissioner Al Gregg was present, and I was present.
So,
from the county.
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
But would you all be okay with Dick just putting something together that just says what impact that water is having on our roads and bridges in that area, so that we could use that?
Those bridges, are they one of the ones that get inspected?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, from
Yeah.
Banner. We have
We could pull
inspections,
that out.
we have a written report from them,
Yes.
or if we ask them to inspect again, then you could say, since our last report, there has been damage or has not been, or that kind of stuff. They could put a letter together. Yes, a Banner could on those two specific or three specific structures there.
Well, I think what we want, we want to show the damage from 2011. If we got to, try every 2-year report or whatever, see if they can document any damage over the time period. Because this breach in the Big Sioux River has just, keeps causing damage continuously on us. So that's where he might have documentation showing where it's getting worse and worse and worse as time goes on.
And it should show some sign over that amount of period of time. It should show some sign if it's accelerating the deterioration. And so,
would you be willing to do that, Dick? Can you put something together for us?
Yeah, we'd have that. I'd have to talk to Banner and get it out of their archives and whatever, but
I think we're going to need something to support our position, and we've got the history. We just need to pull it together. So thank you.
All right. So you want it right, wrong, or indifferent? If it says it is, if it isn't,
If
just
it
let
isn't,
you know.
if it isn't, then I don't know that we necessarily need a written report then, because we won't need to use that. But then we'll know that this isn't going to cost us, hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix whatever is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the representation that we hear when we have these meetings, is that the county needs to be concerned because of the impact on our roads and bridges from that water. And we just need to know for sure what's going on.
The reason I ask that is one of the indications on the bridge we're scheduling that we got the grant for.
Yep.
It's going to say it's in dire need of replacement, but how you're going to prove that it was because of less water then is the reason it's in such dire need of replacement? That's where I'm confused.
no, I don't think we're talking about that structure. We're talking about the ones to the west.
Oh, I thought you were talking about any of them. I thought you wanted the three, the one on 19.
I was thinking two. Well, there's those two there too, but I guess on the Country Club Road there, that water comes through that quarter in that section and goes back.
The one way down to the south on about 218 someplace.
Right.
Goes
someplace
out there,
down
and
there.
that's another. That not as much water has gone through those, but since 2011, a tremendous more amount of water has gone through those structures, and they weren't built to handle that type of structure. And so I think if we can show from Banner's inspections that because of the increased flow, we're going to need to redo this bridge before it deteriorates to where it's a safety problem, that bridge, but also going out the other side too, because that water's got to go somewhere, and it goes back to the Big Sioux, and it comes across the Country Club Road somewhere.
Right, down on 218, and
Right.
actually the one is, that you're speaking with is on the Sinai Road immediately to the east of 468.
Right.
Yeah. So those two on there, my third I was thinking of was over on the Country Club Road. Was I was
Okay.
Not
Well-
not the Big Sioux River. We got that in the hopper to get done, but I don't think we need
Yeah,
to
it's
talk
the
about
two bridges that are being impacted with the change in the flow.
Right.
Mhm.
That's what we need. You
So,
okay with that, Dick?
Sure.
yeah. Now,
All
I
right.
guess I would perhaps give a question to Bob too, and that you'd mentioned yesterday, Bob, about needing some information from the township on the roads.
We are doing our pre-disaster mitigation plan, and if you have any infrastructure, which roads are for a township, if you can, we're working with a first planning district, a guy named Luke Mueller up there. And what I'll have to do, if it's all right with you, is give him your contact information and have him call you and see what they can put in that plan from
Okay,
your,
all right,
from your
that's fine.
township
You just
specific.
mentioned that yesterday and wanted to make sure we were going in the right direction.
I just need your permission to have him
Nope,
contact
that'd be
you.
fine. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
No, that's all I have. And again, Leanne has been actively involved with us, and so we try to keep her aware of what's going on, and hopefully that keeps the whole commission up to speed. And as we get more information and can share that with you, we will certainly be doing so. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Mark? Thank you very much for coming. Stacy, we're going to move on to your report.
First part of my report is the surplus cash analysis information for August. We were at 25.18%. Right, just, about average for the past 8 years. You can see 25% this year, little down from last year, but definitely up from 2016, way up from 2015, then pretty average across the rest of the way. So doing good there. This was in my report as well. Bob had put this in the box. I didn't know if he had already spoken to this about the Justice and Public Safety Policy Steering Committee through NACO. He was nominated to be a member of that again. A couple other things before I get into dates. The Conservation District, I put the agenda out on your desks this morning. That meeting is tomorrow. I got word yesterday that they moved the meeting, though. Usually it's at their office at 205 6th Street. It is moving to the shop north of town. And we're familiar with that, where we go to start our Conservation District tours. So the meeting is still at 8:15 tomorrow, but at the shop. And then I thought Chris Lilla might come back, but last week we had some vandalism done to one of the equalization vehicles that's parked out by our city garage. There was a back window, not the very back window, but the back window behind the driver's side, on the driver's side, was kicked out, knocked out, something. Earlier this summer, we had a rear view mirror on one of the equalization vehicles also ripped off with vandalism. We've got Safe and Secure to come in. He was actually here last week doing some other things, and he provided us a quote to install a couple of security cameras, and I've already been in touch with the city because what we would like to do is mount them on the city's garage. So we would need to have, obviously, use their garage, run the cabling through their tie-into their power to run our cameras. And then these cameras, they wouldn't be directly tied into this building. They'd have individual memory cards so that, that would hold data for up to 30 days. So if there is an incident, we'd have some camera coverage out there, because this is happening now a couple different times in the last month. So the quote is for about $1,700 for the two cameras. So I'm kind of just looking for direction from the board if that's something that you want us to go ahead and do. Like I said, I already visited with the city, Paul Brasino, the city manager, and they're okay with us using the city garage to mount those.
Where are those parked at?
They're to the south and across where the city garage is. They're parked over there. They're not garage. They just sit outside, just south of this building.
But they're not on this building's parking lot.
Not in this building's parking lot, no. Yeah, by the tracks. Across the street even, right? Across the, go south and across the street, and then there's a city garage over there.
If you go through that narrow and go across the street.
It's right over there, yeah. So we've had a couple incidents in the last few months, so this is a way at least to maybe provide, and we could maybe even look at putting up some signs that say cameras, you know, kind of like we did with the 1921 parking lot, where, you know, we could put some signs up that say that cameras are in use here or something. So
Are there any cameras that observe the parking lot around this building, the exterior of this building?
Sean would probably know if he's comes out from behind the back curtain. If there's some at the parking lot, I don't believe there are any in the back, like the back alley.
One of the things I think you could probably do with the additional parking lot we're going to put in when the houses are removed is to put the cameras on this building and cover not only across the street but our own parking lot in the future, so that we and it's a well-traveled path uptown and downtown for people to walk, and sometimes people are responsible after they've been downtown for a while.
Well, and just even yesterday, we had an incident too where our the mechanism on our padlock, that's the gated area where our HVAC system and our generators sit, that was actually somebody had used a screwdriver and taken off the whole mechanism with the padlock and gotten into that gated area. There's not a whole lot back there, but we did find that they unplugged the generator. So
wow,
we were
so
without
I guess
power
my suggestion
with
would be
that,
maybe
so.
if the camera from this building could cover the one across the street. At the same time, once we get the new parking lot in, it might be appropriate to have it cover
I don't know
that,
if it can
maybe
reach
even the
that
front
far.
parking lot.
That's quite a distance, isn't it?
You could see, but it would be incredibly blurry that far away.
And how many vehicles do we have?
There's about 7 or 8 vehicles, I believe, that they park over there.
I've got 2 vehicles, from my emergency management truck and my zoning truck are both over there.
It could be better. I'll go with that. And with the addition of the parking lot, that's something that I brought up briefly with the sheriff and with Stacy. And once we actually get to the point where we have vehicles parking out there, and especially with this latest event with somebody getting into the generator and HVAC area, looking at adding cameras to at least point across the front of across all 4 sides of the building from one direction, if not 2.
Is that going on the joint powers agenda then?
Yeah, I think that's something. I mean, this was sort of our project to do, you know, and the city said that, you know, yeah, you can use our building and use our power, but it's probably something that we need to look at a much bigger scale with some of the other incidents now that have been happening.
And I guess my question is, once we have the new parking lot done, will we continue to park over in this area for the 8 vehicles that belong to us, or will they park in that parking lot?
No, I think they would continue to park across over there, yeah. It's next to a city garage where a lot of, you know, the city parks their various vehicles, but they are all inside their garage.
And that was the purpose of that, was to park our vehicles.
So we'll still need to spend money to do the cameras, no matter what we do.
I still think we should do the cameras over there, because I don't think anything that you mount here on this building is going to be able, like Sean said, it's not gonna really serve a purpose. You can maybe see that you might be able to get a time, and you know, but I don't think if you're looking to get a description of someone, I don't think you're gonna get it from a camera mounted to this building shooting across the street to the parking lot.
No, I'm sure we could get long distance cameras, but those would be focused just at that. They would provide no benefit to this building at all.
And you might also see what it might cost to put a security fence across over there. I mean, it's wide open area, and if for them to park in, I mean,
so far we've had 2 incidences, so it isn't like it's chronic. It's probably 1 or 2 individuals that have gotten away with it at some point in time. Hopefully
Yeah,
they're
it
gone
just-
or they're caught. But,
And we haven't had any incidents. You know, we've been here for 6 years, and it's just in the last couple months now we've had 2 incidents happen. So I don't know if it's now becoming an issue. Why it hasn't been, I don't know. But with this and then the generator issue that we had, you know, yesterday, that we found yesterday.
And do we have security cameras on the exterior of the courthouse?
The sheriff's office does.
Okay, so the whole courthouse area is covered. We've got that under control. Okay.
I think the other thing to realize is once we remove those houses, which is giving coverage for somebody doing vandalism to the generator, so to speak, once that's completely open and lit up, that's going to help a little bit for security because there won't be coverage. Right now, there's nobody in those houses, nobody watching them except who might be across the street, and that's about it. So while there'll be nobody in the parking lots, it'll be very open for people to see what's going on too. So once we remove those houses, and hopefully pretty quickly here, we can reassess it. But I also think it should be something on the Joint Powers Board agenda to address and for obviously to come up with some costs and expenses, some options is how we should look at it.
I mean, it's unfortunate the vehicles have to sit outside. I mean, years ago they were actually at the highway department, but there's not enough room out there anymore. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to have all those vehicles sitting outside. I mean,
Well, it wasn't very handy at the highway department either. I mean,
No.
at least they're accessible to them. And I think we can solve this problem with cameras. Or at least catch the bad actors.
And I have no problem then with us spending the money if that's what everybody else is saying, but I do have a question about, so they're not hooked into our computer system, they're on a card. Who monitors to make sure everything's working if we don't? How do we get that set up? Is that all, Sean? Okay.
For the most part.
Love volunteers.
Well, using other systems, same systems, as long as they have power, they're fine. And Stacy said we'll have about 30 days worth of storage. It's a 4-camera system. Well, it's capable of handling up to 4 cameras. We're looking at 2. And with 4 cameras, it gets roughly about 30 days of capacity. With 2, I'm anticipating potentially double that if we really needed to.
And you don't need internet for it because it's on a USB card.
Well, it's actually it is its own DVR device. We're getting basically a little computer that's going to be sitting on a shelf.
What does everybody else think?
Point of information, the city built that garage because of the engineering vehicles store all their equipment in the vehicles, and that was much safer to be inside and heated so the equipment wasn't getting cold and frosting, where the county's vehicles didn't have that requirement, which was why the county didn't participate back in that process, but we helped pay for part of the parking lot so we could park in that facility. I think we paid for all the parking lot, and they paid for their bridge, if I recall back, Joint Powers Board at that time. But it's worked fairly well. As you said, I'd still call these isolated incidences, but I think we take it to Joint Powers Board and look at it again, and then we look at the cost benefit of it. Big brother watching is always a good thing to have at some point in time, but at the same time, if we can improve the security in that area by removing these buildings that are here, putting a parking lot in, maybe a long distance camera pointing over there, and then short distance for our own parking lot, we might be able to solve the problem with one comprehensive system.
So do you want us to wait for the Joint Powers Board to meet before we move forward on any of it? If we wait for
I don't know what kind
cameras,
of
I mean,
cost
the
expense we're
parking
talking
lot
about.
won't be done until sometime next year.
Buildings will
so.
be gone shortly.
This
Yeah,
month,
yes.
in October.
Yeah.
I think, do you know the cost already, Sean? Of
For-
what, of a couple cameras?
Yes, over at the city garage, it's about $1,700.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, that's such a minimal amount.
That's 2 cameras, all the installation, end user training.
My feeling is, let's put them up. Then we go to joint powers and say, we've done this. Do you want to help us with the cost? And if they don't, so be it.
Well, and like Stacy said, she's already talked with Paul to get approval from him, get permission to utilize their stuff, utilize their power
Yeah, I mean,
and their building.
you know, they're not going to participate in the cost of the cameras, but they are participating in that they're letting us mount the cameras on their garage and use their facility and tie into their power to do it.
And when I said that about joint powers, I wasn't talking
speaking-
about the $1,700 units that we're doing over there. I'm talking about we need to put some cameras on this
building.
And that should go to joint powers.
Okay.
Even if joint powers were to make a decision to go to a comprehensive, all-in-one system that would cover all, there's some value to that system we could use elsewhere in the county.
There is the possibility. We opted not to investigate it for this particular project because it does get expensive to wirelessly beam the footage from one building to the next to tie into our existing system. So we opted for cheap and effective.
Okay. Go ahead,
Okay.
Stacy. Thank you, Sean.
I think that's it. Other than the dates coming up, the wellness fair is this Thursday. It's going to be held up here in the rooms upstairs, up here on the 3rd floor. We are doing the food drive for the food pantry, the competition with the city. So if you do stop up, bring a couple of non-perishable food items. We're in competition with the city side to whoever brings the most. So feel free to participate in that. The candidate forum is this Saturday starting at 8:30 here in this room. Also on Saturday, you have the Raven Precision Agriculture groundbreaking. I think I mentioned that last week. That's at 1:30 Saturday afternoon. The 8th offices are closed due to the Native American holiday. Hobo Day, I think as it gets a little closer, I think we'll probably hear some more, but I think you guys are all set, and I'll go buy some candy and make sure you guys get that so that you have that to distribute at the parade. The Business Expo Brookings, October 18th. It's from 5 to 7 at the Swiftel Center, and we do have a table once again for the county out there. So we have a department head meeting next week, so I'll be looking for volunteers to help me man that table on the 18th. Department head evaluations, again, I think you all received the self-evaluations last week, and the evaluations, your individual evaluations are due to the HR office by 5 o'clock on the 19th, and mine, of course, go to Leanne. And then the 30th is the day that we'll have this special exec session to do the reviews, and I'll get an agenda out and a schedule out for that. And you had decided that you're starting at 8. I have that time wrong. You are starting at 8 with the first review starting at 8:30. And then on Tuesday, November 13th, 4-H Recognition Awards Night. That's out at the BCOAC. The meal is at 5, and the awards presentation will start at 6:30. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner reports, Commissioner Jensen.
The only thing I did receive a call from Trenton Township Supervisor. He was concerned about the water going over 214th yet, and he offered when harvest is done to take a look at the area out there and the drainage. So that's all I have.
Commissioner Miller.
On October 26th, the weed board went on a tour to look at the weeds or lack thereof, hopefully was what we were looking for. We were in the southern part of the county. We were down by Lake Campbell and Sinai, and it looked as though Misty and her team did a pretty good job. Of course, thistles are always difficult, and they're doing a little bit different spot spraying with a different chemical to try to get those things. On October 27th, I had a domestic abuse meeting, and we discussed that October is the Domestic Violence Awareness Month. and we went through our budget, and that's all I have.
Commissioner Krogman.
Oh, sorry. And in their last month with their federal funds, they had gotten funds ahead of time, and they did not get any money their last month. So they had to have savings to pay their bills at the end of the month. So they wish they could get them to give their money at a certain right rate to where they can spread it out over 12 months. But she said, actually, we were fortunate. There were a couple of people that the last 3 months they had not had any income coming in because they had received all their income earlier in the year. So really makes a difference on cash flow and stuff and planning. And she said we were kind of fortunate just to have 1 month with no income. And these are the federal funds that come in. So it's how they report it and how they send it out, and it's just not very consistent. So, but otherwise, yeah, should have a report coming up here on how things went. I'm sure we'll get on the agenda here and move forward on that, of how the things gone. But that was our meeting. So that's all I had.
Commissioner Bartley.
All right, on September 26th, we had the Joint Jurisdiction Review Committee meeting hosted by First District again, and we are working on things there. I'll let Leanne report on that. So when she was there, I'll report on the next meeting. After that one was disaster mitigation that Bob had referred to. Just as a sidebar to what Bob had related to Mark about putting that township or those roads on the emergency mitigation list. Basically what it amounts to is if a tornado goes through Brookings and we have a disaster relief, there are other things, if we have maybe listed them, that we can apply for money or use the money for. And one might be a bridge or a dike replacement or something of that nature. So we have to have those things on the list. If we have a disaster emergency declared, we can also get funding for other types of projects. So that's basically, Bob, is that correct? That was a review of that? Okay. So Bob is putting that together. First District is actually going to work on that plan. The 27th, the next day, we had a meeting up at First District, and it was their annual review, and they got a lot of projects going on. They're training new staff. They're working on an awful lot of things. They're still in the black. The dues increases to all the participating counties has remained at the same type of a percent for over the years. But they do an awful lot of work, and I guess they'll continue to because they still have Todd as their executive director. That completes my report.
Thank you. On September 26th, I attended the joint jurisdiction meeting with Stacy and Mike and Bob, so we were all there. The mining subcommittee reported that they have, I think, a rough draft of the proposed mining ordinance. They sent it out to some of the mining organizations. We're waiting for that to come back, and then eventually our committee will get a chance to take a look at that. We had a lot of conversation regarding Zone A Aquifer Protection Area, and Steve Meyer from Utilities talked to us a lot about that and the things that we need to be looking at. And what I came away with is I think our ordinance might be okay, but we just want to be really careful what we're doing. And whether or not that Zone A area is going to be changing, we don't think so, but how do you know? So that was one of the areas that we looked at a lot. We probably had an hour conversation on that. And then the last part of our meeting was concerned with uses in the ag area in joint jurisdiction, and we really focused on home occupations and what home occupation should be allowed, which one shouldn't be allowed. How do you keep a home occupation from turning into a business then that impacts future development in the joint jurisdiction area? We didn't reach any resolutions. We just had a lot of conversation on that. I think we'll be coming back to that again. I don't know if there was anything else regarding those conversations that any of you want to add, but that's what we were working on. And then on October 1st, yesterday, I met with the Madera Township group, which you've already heard all about that. So that would be the end of my report. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to move into executive session pursuant to 1-25-2.1 on personnel issues.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we will be in executive session.